Welcome to Midlife Women Entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Lynette Turner, and I have a question for you today. I want to know, have you ever had the moment where you're watching somebody online and you think, man, I could be doing that? It feels so obvious. It feels like you, and then you don't do it. You stay in that safer version of your business. You keep the same offer. You keep pushing through work that just doesn't light you up anymore. Today, we're talking all about that. We're going to talk about alignment in your business, but in a practical way, not a fluffy kind of way, the kind that helps you simplify your message, clean up your offer, and stop building a business that slowly drains you. My guest today is Barb Scala. She is an alignment coach who helps women 50 plus redefine success by rooting into self-worth, rising with purpose, and building a business that reflects their real value. Barb, welcome to the show. I'm going to hand the floor over to you. Tell everyone who you are and the work you do, and then we're going to jump right into it.
Hi, Lynette, and thank you so much for having me today.
My
Hey,
pleasure.
I light up when I work with women, especially high achieving women, midlife beyond, yes, that 50 plus point, where we're really starting to question, am I failing? Am I in burnout? What's going on? I'm not being fulfilled. I mean, so many signs and clues. And my work blends that intuitive insight with that grounded strategy to let go of all those shoulds, what we think we should be doing, and guide women back to their voice, their value, and the work they were actually meant to do. So I can't wait to dig in deep about this so we can know how to align into our next chapter.
Awesome. So, Barb, we on the pre-call, we talked a little bit about this. I could do that. And I don't think I've ever met one single person in my life that hasn't said, oh, I could have done that. Or I should have, like you said, I should have done that. But then what happens to us that we don't actually do it?
But we are guided by the shoulds. That's it. Where it's misalignment is when our inner world and our outer selves and inner selves are not aligned. They're not matching up so that we just feel disconnected. And we're not, as I said before, we're not failing. It isn't even burnout because there's a difference. We can rest when we're burned out, right? But when we're misaligned, we have to go into a deeper journey of what is it that is feels in alignment and more truer about who we are now. Because we have a growth cycle. And when we start out in our careers, we're on a track, but we grow and we evolve into different beings and we gain experiences and different expertises. And many times we have a misidentity at midlife and beyond because we're still attached to those old stories, those old identities, old labels. And it's about making that paradigm shift into a new way of being that's closer to your truer self.
So when you talk about alignment, I mean, we hear a lot of that word going around, right? Get in alignment, get in alignment. But what does it really mean? Sometimes I think to myself, am I aligned to what I'm doing or am I just bored of what I'm doing? Or maybe am I burnt out or I just feel like I want something new. How do you differentiate when you're working with a client and she comes to you and, what is she saying to you that helps you identify that she might not be in alignment or, the underlying cause of that?
Well, she may be dreading her work. She may feel invisible. She may be overworking to overcompensate. A bunch of things. She may be really trying really, really hard and making things happen, and they're not. And it's not about that working. They're not working hard. These women are not working hard or they're not doing the right things. They're just misaligned. They're just not where what I like to call their highest level of service or work, that they're maybe stuck in a should or a pattern or an old identity. And it's about growing into the person and the values and the truth that we now can help and share and radiate out in our service work to others.
What happens when a woman comes to you? but she's never been truly aligned to anything that she's done in her life. She's Maybe she went to school, maybe she didn't, i.e., university, I mean. But then she got the job. Like most women in their midlife have led a very stereotypical life. And so they got into a lane of their work that probably met the current needs back then, which was go to school, get a degree or not, but get a job and then start working, raising kids. And they've been in this lane for so long that they've realized, I hate the last 20 years of what I was doing. Now I'm in midlife in my 50s and I'm thinking, oh, I'd like to start something new, but I haven't even got a clue what to do. How would you work with that person to try to get them aligned to something?
Well, that's basically my story. I'm a lawyer, went to law school, right? We tend to follow those. I'm going to do what's expected of me. I'm going to do right, get a job, the societal norms, what we're supposed to do to quote unquote be successful out there, and to provide and to contribute and really show up for our responsibilities to others and our lives. But at some point, if we're totally off track, I mean, you're just gonna know it. That little voice will start talking, and first it's a whisper and it will get louder and louder, and you'll just feel off center, off ground, you're not grounded, off balance. And so I went through my own, I guess it's great here, midlife show, midlife crisis on, okay, practicing law isn't doing it for me. It is not that higher level service work. What is it? And so you have to go through a bit of a journey and an excavation to find out how to be more aligned. Now, the clue is that what we did, like you said, "Oh, I hate the last 20 years of what I did." It's never for naught. There's always some reason or all the good stuff we learned that we can pull into an alignment going forward on what we want. So, an example is someone I'm working with who's in the divorce coaching arena, has a teaching degree. And so she's going to meld that into helping healthy families. And so what a great level of service, because she left the teaching profession, probably felt burned out or whatever it was, and then started working in mediation and divorce coaching and all. And now it's going to blend the two main focuses of her life. It's not always that perfect though. It's not always that easy. So, which is where with guidance we can discover what it is. And I always say there's three things. You have to be conscious, you have to be present, and you have to be really curious to ask the questions that are going to make that journey smoother rather than bumpy, or shorter rather than really labored and long, which was mine. I mean, I went in this nonlinear direction for several years. I did everything from divorce coaching, which is why I help a lot of different types of coaches, to creating a lifestyle brand and doing becoming like the local foodie chef on TV and several things in between, because I didn't really know how to narrow it down. Well, I do now, and I call it my framework, the seeds for success. So anybody else's journey doesn't have to be as long as mine was. I wanted to make it more streamlined. You don't have to bang your head against the wall for years and years and try different things, especially if you don't have the time or wherewithal to do that.
Right. So when you went through your, let's call it a reinvention, so
Mhm.
that you could kind of get more sort of like you say aligned to what's right for you. When you were going through that, you sat down and you said, okay, being a lawyer was not what I want. How did you then start? What steps did you start to take to uncover that? Because you said you had done a few things before you had landed on what you do today. What
I think
questions did you ask yourself? How did you do that, I guess, skills inventory, if you will?
I started to be present, conscious, and curious, and noticing what triggered me sometimes. What triggered me? What would I naturally help people with? I knew it was in the coaching arena. I thought I'm an attorney, right? The natural linear way of thinking is, and the should be a divorce coach because I've got this legal background, right? And mediation background. But that wasn't landing right. So I was really curious and just started digging deeper and realizing that I was always triggered when women would say, "This is what I'm doing," and they're trying to justify it. And I can somehow have, you know, how Superman has like x ray vision or something. I can almost see through it and say, my gosh, that's not really what she's jazzed about, or why is she going in that direction or staying stuck in that when she can be so much more or onto a different evolution or growing in a different way. And so I don't know, we tend to overlook what our natural inclinations are or how we can, what we naturally do. And this was kind of my very intuitive thing that I did with everyone. I would go, no, that person is not landing on it right. And then I started to work with that and say, oh my gosh, that's where I can help women. I can help women because they're stuck in those old stories and old identities and what's being expected of them and all those pressures and self doubts that don't move them forward.
So do you help a woman get clear on her offer, or do you help the woman create the offer?
Good question. I would tick all of the above.
Yeah.
Getting aligned more with her idea. What is the problem she can ideally solve, and who can she ideally solve it for? And what is her natural inclination, or what is her superpower to then help with these problems. Like some women out there are really good with helping women align for being visible. And that's part of my work too, how to get visible and how to build up that confidence. But mine is fine tuned. And so when they get aligned to exactly the problem they're solving, then they can create that offer and then they can build out a really great offer or offers for their audience so that they are the person to help them with that and they can attract the people and clientele they want to work with.
How did you present yourself to your network that you were now this different person, that you were no longer the lawyer, you were no longer this lifestyle influencer, if you will, and now you are doing what you're doing today? How does somebody change the perception of themselves to people who already know them as a certain way?
Interesting question. You know, I got asked that a lot. I co-authored a book, Sanity Savers Tips for Women to Live a Balanced Life. And the number one question I got from audiences when we went to Q&A was, how did you transition from being a lawyer and doing this? And I'll have to say that I practiced law, then I coached and I did events for women and I like I said, I had a nonlinear approach. I went back to practicing law because I needed to get grounded in what I had studied, in what I knew really well to realize, oh my gosh, here I am again. I'm asking for that something more. So to present yourself in a different light, you're going to show up to new audiences who don't even know you. Or if they did, you're evolving, you're growing. How many musicians out there go on to be in the movies? And they don't have to explain it. I know I'm a musician, but now I'm in a movie. It's just like when you present it in that really confident and clear, make it very clear, people are gonna go along with you for the ride because they're like, "Good for her." Actually, it's a ripple effect because, people say, "Wow, if she did that, I wonder if I could," and that's the reaction I often get. So it's rather inspirational, and people are gonna lean into the transitions rather than say, I want her in this box, stay in this box. Because that's not, I'm all about, my metaphor is all about blooming, bloom with Barb, right? So it's all about growing and evolving and rising and more purposeful work that really makes the impact that we're all looking for, and that self-fulfillment and everything else we want from our work, and we just don't want to go through the motions of things. So you'll be surprised how people will embrace that transition when you feel very confident about it and you feel like I'm aligning, and they'll say good for her. My gosh, she's more aligned. This is more to her true self. This is more the values. This is what all of her experience has led to. And now she can offer it out in a new and unique way, which is going to help so many more people, especially women in the transactional type business like I was in. And now I'm using it more in a transformational way. It creates that impact that I'm looking for, and that can help and guide more people. So it's beneficial.
Okay, so what is the shift that has to happen for a woman to stop selling the task or you should do this, you should do this, and start selling the transformation? Like, how do they pivot from that? I help women do blank so that blank. How do they get to that selling of the transformation?
You're talking about two different business models. You're talking about a transactional hour, time, report based transactional business, which I did. The paradigm shift is into transformational work, which is not tied to hours, it's tied to value. It's a value based business model. And that I help women align into their value because they're doubting themselves. They're doubting that they could ever get aligned because it feels scary. It feels like they're not quite valuing themselves there. How can others value them? And it's an amazing thing when they shift from that transactional model to that value based model. It's like the whole everything shifts, and it's wonderful to see. I can think of one of my clients who, a massage therapist who had a really thriving business with vendors of massage therapists bringing them to companies, and she didn't know it. Well, she did know it, but we discovered that, aren't I going into this company and talking about mindfulness like I see people doing it while I'm there with my doing the massage experience? And I'm like, I don't know. Why aren't you developing wellness programs? So it was shifting that business model from being having an arsenal of vendors and providing a massage experience to her shift that being almost like an add-on to her business or part of the experience of it, but she's providing now wellness programs to companies and being the thought leader in that arena. So that was, I always say that's like my poster child for the transformation that can be made from being transactional to transformational, and which creates an expertise and a thought leadership. You take on a leadership role in how you're of service to people.
Yeah, and I think that that wellness example you just gave there, for me, I feel like she could have stayed so caught up in the, going out, giving the massages and staying very transactional, as you say, in that realm. But then now that she's elevated herself into this more corporate wellness example, she gets to do that thing that she sees other people do as well. Like there's so many people out there that are talking about mindset and, and I'm sure she probably thought to herself, I could be doing that, but then had no way of really incorporating into her business. Well, didn't know how to incorporate it into her business.
Did not know where to start, what the steps in between were. And it's so funny because she just came on. So I run the Bloom Business Incubator, and she came on the call the other day. And I said, "Tell us about when you first came here." And we toyed with the idea of you doing these programs. And she went, it was always like the scariest thing you could ever say. It's almost like she lost her voice, like the Little Mermaid. And, in the story. So now she comes on the call with confidence, just beaming. I mean, she looks like a leader because she is a leader. She looks like an accomplished woman business owner because she is one, because she stepped into it, because she took those steps. She did not know where to start. But here's a clue, and you said it, and we're talking about it here. What's one way to know that you're misaligned when you go, "My God, why can't I do what she does? I'd love to do what she does." Or and it could be somebody who's famous or maybe not. It could be just like her, that she was there and she saw somebody walk in and give a talk and say, "Why are I'd love to do that." And not even realizing that she could. She was in her business for over 30 years, 25, 30 years, something like that. So she was in a real plateau for a long time.
Yeah, but she was okay with the plateau, or did she always know there was something more there? Yeah.
She was not okay with the plateau. That's why she came to me. I'm in a
Yeah,
plateau. I don't know what to do with it.
right,
Didn't
exactly.
know. I mean, it was not like I want to make wellness programs for companies. That's what we unearthed. That's
Yeah,
what the
you
work
unearthed
does.
together.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
she's beaming because she worked in the corporate world and understood stress and being tied to that chair and everything. And then she went out and learned about different modalities and spirituality and mindfulness and so many things. And then she thought, and massage. So that was great. It was a de-stressor, but that still wasn't her exact alignment. And when she took that, how she felt stressed out in the corporate world, to now helping them with mindfulness and being, you know, cared for and self-serving themselves. Oh my God. I mean, like I'm smiling just talking about her. That's how she talks. She like beams. You notice a shift when their work starts lighting them up, when there's a confidence, when their creativity returns, or the creativity process starts where it was like log jammed. When I don't know where to start or know what to do or don't know what my something more is, to, oh my gosh, it's almost like I don't know where not to stop. I have someone who's like, "I can't put the pen down. It's 10 o'clock at night and I have to on my computer because I have to go to sleep." She's so in content creation mode with what she's doing. So it really lights you up to the point of you might have tons and tons of energy all of a sudden all over again, where you felt so de-energized and so out of breath almost before.
yeah. And I think about like I know a lot of women who have had businesses for that long as well, 25 years. And it's going, but I don't know if it's really lighting them up to that level of an example. And I think that, sometimes I think a lot of women in that state will just start to add on different types of services. They'll keep stacking services on
Yeah.
to ultimately create this soupy mix offer, if you will. What do you think is happening there? What need is trying to come out of that woman?
They're staying not grounded, but almost like stuck in this identity. And so they're not working creatively. I work with a lot of attorneys who have shifted like I did into the divorce coaching arena, and they're trying to run their coaching business like their litigation practice. And it doesn't work. So there is a pivot and a shift and an involvement, and that with guidance, we can get it. It's a skill we can acquire because the cost of misalignment is high. It affects our emotional well-being, our physical, our spiritual, our cultural identities and everything. So the cost of high is high. And when we do align and really do that work we're meant for, or that something more, or that fulfilling, or creating that impact, it's really, really lifts us up in so many ways for our overall well-being.
Yeah, and there's things too that they probably haven't even thought about. Like, I think about often I'll help somebody just sort of brainstorm a bunch of their skills, but then we look beyond the tactical skill and we look beyond like what's the shadow skill that they've got because they have that particular skill. And I don't think you get that ability through chat, ChatGPT, or even just on your own. I think you're too close to it. I think the help of somebody like you to really draw that out is what's necessary, to really get into the shadows of what they'd love to do and bring it out and get them to see it as, an add-on to their offer. Maybe it's a complete pivot. Maybe it's just a small directional change. Barb, if somebody was listening today and they felt pulled towards a new lane in some way, wants to do something, but they feel a little bit scared and unclear about what that is, what would be the smallest, bravest step that you'd want her to take this week that would tell her the truth about what she's really meant to do next?
I would tell her to grab a piece of paper and a pen
Mhm.
and write at the top of the paper, what am I meant to do? Not supposed to. What am I meant to do next? And just let it go. And maybe do that every day, because in the beginning, when we start doing those kind of prompts, we're going to default to the usual. We're not going to think outside of the box. We're going to stay in our lane. But every day you kind of write the same question at the top of the page, and when you write it you're not quite landing with it, something else is going to flow, and you're going to get closer and closer to something that you have to really explore deeper in. So I always say everything is just like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. The answers are inside of us.
Okay, so she's written down for the next 3 days. She's what am I meant to do at the top of the page? And it's just a free flow. How do you tell somebody to do that without them putting guardrails around, like limitations, I guess, around what they're going to write?
Well, when you're guiding people to get realigned, the first thing that comes up a lot of the times is a very scary concept. Oh my God, I have to abandon I have to,
Yeah.
misalignment is about abandoning, but now I have to abandon everything I know. And I have to totally change. And that's overwhelming, right? So I don't advise that. This is a step by step process. It's a progression, and you can evolve with it. So it's starting somewhere. It's noticing those clues, those patterns, those triggers, those tugs, but starting out on that path with one step and foot in front of the other is a way to really evolve and grow. And no, you don't have to throw everything out and start all over again at midlife, because that would be daunting. It's about building, it's about growing. So
Yeah.
that's the good news.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. It's like you said, you're not throwing the baby out with the water kind of thing. You're still doing what you're doing today, but get started today
Yeah.
on what does that next growth spurt, if you will, look like for you and how can you evolve? So I really like that. So if she's done this exercise for 3 or 4 days, has a few kind of ideas, but maybe I am going to call on Barb to get a little clarification. What does it look like to come under your wing, if you will?
Well, They can go on my website, bloomwithbarb.com. They can email me. And I'm so happy to take a call and let's just chat. Let's just see what's going on. I call it an alignment strategy assessment, but it's a really nice friendly talk and I'll be asking questions which will lead me to, hey, here's what your next step would be, or this is how we could work together. And I do run a Bloom business incubator which is for women in the sweet spot when they've started something and they're not gaining the momentum. I can work one on one and we can go on a journey and get that assessment down. So that's the building blocks and the core to start from to then keep taking it and keep tweaking it and keep working with it.
Barb, where do people are you on Instagram?
I am.
And what is the handles?
I'm Bloom with Barb at on Instagram. And yeah. And on LinkedIn, I'm Barb Scala.
Okay, perfect. So bloomwithbarb.com and Bloom with Barb on Instagram. One last question before I let you go. Uh, Inside of your incubator, what's happening inside of there?
Ah, well, we have a marvelous group and community and of women who are just that. They're incubating. They're professional, they're high achieving women. They might be on their next chapter, their next act, getting to their next level. They may be trying, go into a new direction with what they're doing and they're fine tuning and getting better aligned. And each time they do, they just go up a notch. And it's just amazing to see the people they work with and what they're doing. And it's just great to have that camaraderie because when women come together, there's quite an energy that happens.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. Well, Barb, thank you for being on today and thank you for giving us such a nice way of looking at business. I think that through the lens of alignment and loving what you do, lighting yourself up, letting go of what's not lighting you up. So thank you for that. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, Lynette, for having me on. I've enjoyed it so much. Thank you.
Great. You're welcome.